All right. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, friend. Case Erickson here with the one, the only, the infamous, the author, the podcaster, the content creator, the magician, the law of attraction connoisseur, flipping the law of attraction on its head, lifelong New Yorker and transformation extraordinaire, Mr. Andrew Kap, author of the Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. Welcome to the Men Who Shine show, Mr. Kap. I'm excited to be here.
Case, thanks so much for having me, man. I'd never quite gotten an intro like that, and thank you for dealing with the landmine that is the longest book title that you've probably ever
I know.
ever
I had
heard.
it
Right?
right
I
in
know it's a
front of me too.
mouthful.
I had it right in front of me. Like what I got out of it was like the last law of attraction book I'll ever need to read. Like I just think that I was trying to read it instead of like going with the flow and just being with it. So maybe that's the first thing we can we can talk about is like going with the flow. So what I really appreciated about your book is that it really gave a fresh insights to the law of attraction. So if someone's not familiar with the law of attraction, or actually if someone is super super familiar, it's packaged in such a way that it feels fresh and it feels new and it feels like bite size and it feels like I love your parables and analogies and things that you shared. So it feels new and it feels like, yes, I'm going to do this. Then, really getting us into the space of momentum. And then I also appreciated about it, for those people who've never heard of it. It's like, oh, guess what? You've never heard of it. Then this is the only one you'll need. So, in really not being overly woo, I'll say, because I think that the law of attraction has definitely gotten a lot of content in that space, but really giving it really concrete, tangible. Here's some action items. Here's some things that you're going to do. So I want to get into that in a minute, but I'm also curious, like, what led you to you're copywriting, you're doing this marketing stuff, you're in New York, did you stumble upon, how did this experience of like, oh my God, I got to start documenting this, I got like, what came about in your life that caused this book to be written?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you just for real quick for that compliment, because what you described is what I wanted. I wanted something that was simultaneously accessible and practical, but could also shift the paradigm. So
Yes.
that's really what I was going for. That's what I heard from you. So I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, for sure.
So to answer your question, and it's funny when people ask me now, I say this might be the longest answer in the whole interview. But I learned about law of attraction back in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when I was kind of like in the middle of starting my first business. And I think a lot of people can relate when they're an entrepreneur or they're a salesperson, and that there's that idea of having to kill your own dinner, so to speak. You not that a 9 to 5 is easy per se, but at least the paycheck is steady while you have that job. Whereas if you're an entrepreneur or you're a salesperson, you've got to make that sale or you've got to do that business. Otherwise, the money doesn't come in. And
Mm-hmm.
I found it's personal experience and other people in those roles or in those situations will gravitate towards positive modality, positive thinking, personal development. Law of
Mm-hmm.
attraction was one of many modalities. I was kind of like dipping my toe in those pools. And for me, it resonated as like it kind of made sense, but it seemed really inconsistent. Like I had my successes and I had my failures. In case I'd figure out later, at least from my perspective, it wasn't the law of attraction that was inconsistent. It was me. And I
Mm-hmm.
learned that the hard way in 2008, where that business I'd started, I I closed it down, and within a week of me having to close it down and kind of like giving up, my girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
of 3 years broke up with me over text. Like not even in
Oh,
person, not even a phone
oh
call.
my
It was like,
God, after
oh, like
three
I'm glad.
years.
I know we've been struggling, Andrew, and I'm glad that you close. You shut down your whole business, but I'm out also. So I'm like, all right. It's
While
like
we're at it.
90% of my life it felt like is like gone in a heartbeat in
Yeah.
less than a
Mm-hmm.
week. And I'm obviously, no surprise, down, depressed, trying to figure out what am I going to do. I wasted my 20s, like what am I going to do now? And I had this like epiphany, well, this law of attraction thing kind of worked whenever I actually did it. What if like I'm feeling so stubborn and so indignant right now, what if I just went all in? Because I had that attitude at that point where it's like I don't care what happens, when it happens, why it happens, how it happens. I don't care any of that. I'm going to go all in. And what I mean by that is I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to do it all day, every day. Understanding enough about human psychology to know that doesn't matter how pissed off I am, it's not going to work. But I was upset enough. I was depressed enough. I was motivated enough that I can do 5 or 10 minutes of gratitude or visualization or scripting exercises every single day. And the results that I experienced were nothing short of miraculous. There's no other word. Like within two
Mm-hmm.
weeks, I feel better, which is saying a lot with a broken heart. I'm sure people agree. Within
Yeah.
3 months, I'm in a brand new, way healthier relationship and I'm over my ex. Within
Mm.
4 months, I'm making more money than any point in my life before then. And within 6 months, like everything's different. I'm in the best shape of my life. Everything's running on all cylinders. I'm there. It's working. And I learned that whether this thing is the law of attraction or not, even though I believe it is, whatever this thing is, it works when you work it. And it was
Mm-hmm.
only years later, 11 years later, where I'm like, listen, I've been living my life. I've been learning more about this. I've been understanding myself more about like how we trip ourselves up, how we get in our own way. And I'm like, I want to do something new in my business. What can I do that I'm actually passionate about enough that I won't get bored with the customer emails coming
Mm-hmm.
in? I'll be excited to engage. I can go all in for that also. And so I kind of like looked in the mirror and I'm like, well, listen, I never really talked about this publicly. Can I give myself permission to challenge myself to articulate something, the kind of book I would have wanted 15 years ago, in answer and acknowledgement that
Mm-hmm.
whether it's the law of attraction or whether it's weight loss or relationships or money or whatever, we all tend to overconsume information and under implement it. I gave myself permission to try to
Mm-hmm.
articulate a book that was going to get people enough self permission that they could finally try this and do it consistently long enough to get a result in their own lives. And then it wasn't me or the book or anything else teaching them other than their own personal life experience. So that's my
Mm-hmm.
long-winded answer of like how we got to this point. And, I published it late 2019 and I've been just like really living it every single day ever since, just trying to like, spread the word, grow the YouTube channel and interact with my customers, which I love.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, what would you say for someone who is, I have two questions. One is, what would you say to the skeptic, the one who's like, oh, I've tried everything, or there's this energy of resignation,
Mm,
or this skepticism, or, I think any skeptic is underneath skepticism is resignation, is doubt, hence the word skeptic. What would you say to that individual who's just feeling like, I don't need another LOA pamphlet?
right.
You know
Well,
what I
so
mean?
there's a couple levels of skepticism, and there's two that pop off
Mhm,
the top of my head right now. Because there's there's people that have tried it and it didn't work out, and they're skeptics,
mhm,
and there's
mhm,
people that they've heard about it, but they never even dipped their toe in the pool. So for those first people, believe it or not, you asked one of the most profound questions with the most profound answer, because it's like, okay, why doesn't this thing actually work? Like you say, because everyone knows law of attraction is what you focus on is what you'll get, right?
mhm,
And the thing is, a lot of times people do these methods for the sake of getting their result. And I'm like, well, duh, Andrew, your book says that. Every book says that. Of course, I'm going to do this thing to get the result. But there's a subtle little distinction in there. When you're doing the thing to get the result, you're actually doing something with the attention and focus on the lack of what you want. Whereas if you
mhm,
do the method, the gratitude of visualization, just for the sake of enjoying it, and you get yourself in a
mhm,
place where you're feeling good while you're thinking about what you have or what you want or both, that will indirectly open up the floodgates energetically and magnetically for things to come into your life. So the thing is like, are you focused on the lack of what you want without realizing it, or are you focused on what
mhm,
you want? So I would argue that the people that, if they've ever had a thing where it's like, they're almost like dragging their feet, like, oh, I got to meditate for 5 minutes every day, or I got to do this thing, I got to do this process. It feels like an obligation. It feels like a chore rather than a choice. It feels
mhm,
like something that they have
mhm.
to do rather than something that they get to do. Because I've yet to find a hardcore football fan that looks at me and says, oh, you mean I have to go to the Super Bowl this year? It's like, no, they're pumped. They don't mind waiting in the heat in that stadium all day. They don't mind the travel. They don't mind, like, they want to be there. They're into it. Where someone dragging their
Yeah.
feet, they don't want to be there. They're not going to enjoy these methods. They're not going to get what they want out of it. To give you another long-winded answer, though, to address the people that aren't even sure this thing even works, I always give and you were talking about, like, I like to do, like, parables or analogies or metaphors. I like to keep
Mhm,
things tangible so that we can wrap our minds around it easier. I use the example of lifting weights to get muscles. And everyone can understand that, and you lift weights, you get muscles, right? Well, I've got two possible explanations as to how that happens. Explanation number one is you lift weights and you go to sleep that night. And while you're sleeping, muscle fairy comes, waves her magic wand, and poof, you wake up with more muscles.
mhm,
Explanation number two is when you are lifting weights, you're putting so much stress on your body that your muscles are actually tearing in little areas. And then what your body is going to do is it's going to respond in healing by filling in those gaps with more muscle fiber, hence more muscles. Now, I know I butchered that explanation. I'm sure most people say, well, Andrew, that's, if any one of them is right, that's the right one. But I say,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter which the answer is. All that matters is you lift weights, you get muscles. You put in X,
Mm-hmm.
you get Y. And by that same token, whether you believe this thing or not, if you engage in a gratitude or a visualization process every single day for just 5 minutes, by hook or by crook, as long as you're not gritting your teeth and you're actually enjoying it, you will see a result. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
give me credit, don't give my book credit, don't give the law of attraction or the universe or any of that credit, but at least acknowledge when it happens so that you've seen in your own life that when you do these things, you get results that you like.
Mm. I really appreciate that. And what comes up for me and when you're sharing that is actually an instance of this morning when so I have a morning routine and I'll just do little sets of like pull up, push up, things. And for some reason, I try and do it first thing, like right as like I'm warming up my water for the tea and I'll go do the thing. And I don't always get right to it, but usually it's within the first hour or so, as well as meditation and reading and all the things. But there, I just like, for some reason I had been in this not rut, but this mindset of anger or like, oh God, I just don't want to do these pull-ups. Like, it's like the last thing I want to do. Like, I related to it as the last thing I want to do. Like, I hate it, but it's like, I was more like, okay, I have to, like, I'm more kind of committed to the results. And at the same time, like, that is not the way to approach physical. Like, I was basically sucking the gratitude out of the ability to lift my body, the ability to be flexible, to be strong, to be fit, to be all these things that I currently am. I'm ruining it, or I was ruining it by being angry that I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing it. Like, instead of being like, oh my God, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting fitter, I'm so grateful for being healthy right now, I'm so grateful for air, I'm so grateful for hydration. Yes, queen, yes, like, I mean, taking that energy to the action, like the energy of gratitude to whatever it is you're doing, because you're acknowledging that you're on the way and you're not angry about it along the way. I mean, I really appreciate that, because that's the other layer of the onion that I've been peeling back in my own routine is, I've noticed myself getting, either frustrated or angry or things like that. Like, if, things aren't, happening fast enough. Right. So other than just maintaining gratitude and, consistency, like gratitude and consistency in your routine, is there anything else that one might need to do to continue on if they're not, quote unquote, seeing results fast enough?
Yeah, well, I think it's important. So you might remember this from the book. I think it's important to identify most likely reason why this is happening to begin with, and it might not be in this specific case, but it is often. So
Mm-hmm.
the way I describe it, in terms of our mental process, we have three minds. We've got the conscious, we've got the subconscious, and we've got what I define as the ego. Clinical psychologists probably won't define it in the same way, but the ego, as I define it, way stronger than the conscious mind, but not as
Mm-hmm.
strong as the subconscious, which is good
Right.
news. The thing about the
Mm-hmm.
ego is it only has one job in this world, and that's to keep you alive. And that's really important,
Mm-hmm.
because that means right now, wherever you are in your life, whatever relationship issues, whatever money issues, whatever health issues, even, your ego is looking, this kind of surveying the situation, and all it knows is you are alive right now. It doesn't want to mess with the status quo. So there's someone out there right now, they want to be rich and famous, but for all their ego knows is when they're famous, that's going to lead to a bunch of stalkers, and that's a threat to their survival. For all their ego knows is when they
Mm-hmm.
get money, distant family or the in-laws going to come out of the woodwork and try to take their money. Threat to their survival,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your ego loves you, by the way. It's a misguided attempt to keep you where you're at, but it wants to keep you in place. And this is where fear comes in. This is where uncertainty
Right.
comes in. This is where doubt comes in. This is where all these things where you talk yourself out of it, like, I don't want to do this. That's the voice in your back of your head. Now, obviously, that's a problem that we got to solve, right? Well, the way that I say the extra piece of information here is, how can we bypass the ego and access the subconscious mind, which will just overpower it and do the heavy lifting for you, whether that's communicating to the universe and magnetically pulling it back, or just governing your actions or your mindset so that you're more motivated to do your workout or your meditation or whatever it might be. For me, I've got an easy out regarding law of attraction, because the easy way of doing this is by finding something that's fun and enjoyable. Again, we go
Mm.
back to the example of the Super Bowl, where the football fanatic, they're going to the Super Bowl. You don't have to talk them into it. They're on board. So what if you can find a gratitude process that's only 5 minutes? This isn't like a long hour-long thing that they've got to find time in their day. It's like 5 minutes that they actually enjoy, that's so enjoyable, that's so fun, that they look forward to the point where their ego has a lot more trouble talking them out of it. When then that consistency, again, bypassing the
Mm.
ego, feeding those information to the subconscious mind, it snowballs. So to whatever measure you can in whatever area of life you can, whether it's the law of attraction or whether it's exercising, whatever it might be, try to find enjoyment in what you're doing, because that will fuel your consistency, and your consistency is everything.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. Being grateful, but also making it fun and asking yourself, how can you make this fun? Because when it's fun, your ego is less likely to put up a fight about it.
Yeah, it's almost like it's
Yeah.
like if you start finding yourself talking yourself out of something that you're enjoying, it's like, wait, this doesn't make sense, and you catch it in the act. Again, it's
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep you safe. It doesn't know any better. It doesn't know that when you're in shape, your circulation is going to be better and your health is going to be better, and you're going to be more
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
likely to be alive. And you're
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't think that much. But at the same token,
Mm-hmm.
it knows you so well, and it being stronger than your conscious mind, it is devious and insidious in how it's going to talk you out of what you want to do,
Mm.
fearing what might happen for better or for worse.
Yeah. So what in your experience and the people that you've talked to and the readers and the feedback that you've gotten, what do you feel in your experience is like the foundation? Is there a foundation? Is there a commonality? And if so, what is it of the propensity to sabotage ourselves in any way, shape, or form?
Mm. I mean, with whether they realize it or not, it all comes down to, being fixed in like this is the way it is, and their ego holding to it. And
Mm,
everything else is an offshoot. It might be like you might be telling yourself this is the way it is. You might be experiencing fear. You might be experiencing doubt. It just all comes down to we fear the unfamiliar, because when you think about it, when you become a more grateful person or you get in shape, in many ways you are becoming a new version, a different person, new version of yourself. And it's
right.
so unfamiliar, it's so distant from what you already know as being alive. There's an old I don't know if everyone, you saw that movie Swingers with John Favreau and Vince Vaughn.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
1996, and I remember at the end.
Earmuffs, earmuffs. Oh
Yeah.
wait, was that Swingers? No.
Oh no, that was oh, I know what you're talking about. I think that might have been old school. This was
Oh yes. You
yeah,
said
this is
John
this is kind
Favreau
of
and
like where
what's his
John
name?
Favreau was trying to get over a breakup or something. And I don't want to
Yes.
spoil the movie, but I will say that there's a pivotal point where he's getting counsel from a friend who was like saying, who was talking about his breakup and how he finally got over something, but it got to a point where he started to miss the pain, the heartbreak. And John's
Mm-hmm.
character's like, wait, you missed the pain? And he's like, yeah, probably for the same reason that I missed the girl, because I lived with it for so long. It's like whether something is good or bad, we gravitate toward the familiar. And that familiar
Mm,
is whatever negative money situation or health or relationship. It's familiar, it's safe. It might not be fun, it might not be comfortable, it might not be fulfilling, it might not be satisfying, but it's safe. And we are wired for survival one way or another. So that's my
mm-hmm.
long-winded way of saying, like, we can creep into that. And for me, the general approach is, okay, when you're still in that thing where you think you're being safe and you're satisfying your ego going nuts, do the gratitude exercises and the visualization that will kind of spoon feed the ideas, so that you kind of like you start leveling up without even realizing it. And one day you
Mm,
wake up and you're making, and there's an extra zero in your paycheck. And now here's the cool part. Now that you've got that extra zero and your ego sees you're alive, it's going to fight tooth and nail for that level also. And that's why people, they might have a 6-figure job and they'll lose their job within a year. Whatever new job they're making, they're back at 6 figures. It might have been a rough going
wow.
between then, but they had an internal thermostat that reached that level, meaning their ego has identified that there is safe to live that level, meaning you can always, the highest you've ever been in your life, you can always get back there because your ego knows it's safe.
Mm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tricky one, that ego. I appreciate that you said a gentle approach, because I think a lot of, I mean, and particularly, men, we want to fight tooth and nail, and we want to be, we have aggressive tendencies, or maybe it's just me. My dad was a Marine, so it was very like, just my way or the highway, and so
Mhm.
it's been interesting. I grew up fundamentalist, and that construct and that paradigm. I mean, I've spent years unpacking it, but in context of what you're saying, the approach not being something of like, okay, I'm gonna like be angry, or I'm gonna like, like fight with the ego, but just really like giving it a space to be acknowledged and listen, and reassure it, whether it's through the space of fun or gratitude, or, really kind of be in a dance with it, so that it knows it's safe, and it knows it can survive, because I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, I'm grateful for the ego, inner child, whatever you want to call it, because it does keep us safe. It has kept us safe. It just doesn't define the way that it defines safety is what's wonky. So
Yeah.
we would get to reframe that.
And just real quick to speak to your point about like how men, how, I don't know if we love the fight, we're certainly addicted to the fight.
Right.
I think I'm a big proponent of turning your weaknesses into strengths. Like me, I
Mhm.
have the longest book title ever. I make it the whole cover. I don't even put my name on it. Like, so that if nothing else, my strength is when you're on Amazon and it's really small, you're going to read it. I turn a weakness into strength because I want that whole title. By that same
Right.
token, knowing that we as men might be, without realizing it, addicted to a certain fight or certain struggle. Well, again, I'm going back to another TV show. I don't know if people watch Cobra Kai, but everyone knows who, like, Sensei Kreese from the Karate Kid movies. He's like the
Uh-huh.
evil badass guy. Like, he's all about physicality and violence. But there's a key
Right.
point in the latest season where he tells him to fight smart. So it's like, listen, if
Mhm.
you're in the fight, you don't have to fight hard. You don't even have to fight physically. You can fight smart and strategically. I'm a strategy guy. I'm all about like, okay, if I understand this about myself, what can I strategically do to point myself in a better direction so that I'm directing my energy in a way that it's going to get me a better result? And for me, the fighting smart part is saying, okay, let me find something that's really fun and really enjoyable, a gratitude exercise I could really cling to, that it's
Mhm.
easy to do, that there's more momentum to doing it than to not doing it. I kind of fall into it
Mhm.
very easily.
Mhm. That's great. And in kind of what was coming up for me in your share there was, how gratitude can sometimes backfire, meaning getting us back into that space of lack.
Mm,
Like when, and it's almost like the way that affirmations can backfire. If I'm, 100 pounds overweight and I'm like, I am thin, and your ego is like, no, you're not. That's bullshit. So you perpetuate more of the no, you're not, the more of the, whatever. So, really finding like what you can actually feel good, not like forcing yourself to be grateful, because a lot of times I've seen people do these exercises because they want the thing and they're attached to the thing. So they're like, I'm going to be grateful and I'm going to write down my gratitude list. And does everybody see me and see how grateful I am? And now where's my penny? You know what I mean? And bringing that energy to it
mhm.
is underneath the gratitude is, there's something wrong with me. I don't have what I want. I can't have what I want. I'm just trying to fix myself. There's all these other things playing. So, to really be mindful of the actual energy behind it, and pick things that you can actually be grateful for. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think is important.
you even said like the affirmation, like if I want to get thin and the affirmation I am thin makes me feel bad, it's the wrong
Mm-hmm.
affirmation, because again, that's another subtle and
Yep.
insidious way of me focusing on the lack of what I want. So for
Right.
me, I personally would change the wording of something like, I'm so grateful that my body improves every single day on the road to my ideal weight. And the
Mm-hmm.
cool thing about that is, like, say your ideal weight is 165 pounds. You could be 167 and close, like, that's still going to be awesome, right? That fits the bill of
Mm-hmm.
being closer to your ideal weight. So that leaves so much room to do that kind of thing. It's all about like, how do I insert this idea? Like gratitude, like people, like you were saying, they're trying to force it, right? If
Yep.
you my advice to people, if they're trying to feel gratitude and it's just not working, or their ego's telling them that they're not, take a different perspective, almost go dark. Imagine there's someone that they want to take something away from you, and like my laptop. If I'm not, I'm very grateful for my laptop, but let's say I wasn't, and I was counseled, okay, imagine someone's taking it right now and they said, Andrew, I'm only going to let you keep this laptop, this very expensive laptop to replace with all your files on it. You can only keep it
Mm-hmm.
if you explain to me why it's worth it to you, why you should have it, what it does for you. Then all of a sudden, like, I'm like, oh no, please don't take this laptop away. It has all my files. I wrote my book on this thing. I get, without this, I can't have my conversation with Case. I can't go on any podcasts. I can't publish my YouTube. I can't answer emails. Like, this is my whole business. Like, oh my God, I am so grateful for this laptop. Look at everything it does for me. So you can kind of backdoor your way into gratitude in any which way. And to think about like your legs, your arms, your body parts, like how, you know, I find out real quick how much I value my feet whenever I stub my toe. And then all of a sudden I'm walking funny all day. It's like, oh, it was so convenient
Right.
to run back and forth. You stub your toe. It's like your whole life gets inconvenienced. First world problems, mind you. But you remember real quick everything going on for you right now that you might not notice because you might be worried about something important like a paycheck. There's still so many things to be grateful for. And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, when you're grateful for those things, it opens up the floodgates for the problems and the fixes of the other stuff that you haven't figured out yet.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I had that experience. I know a lot of Texans had that experience with the snowvid, is what we're calling
Yeah,
the
man. Yeah, I
experience of,
bet.
power grids tripping out and people going out without food and water, and it being like 5 degrees and -15 with the wind chill, like unprecedented snowfall, and completely unprepared. The power grid was unprepared. There were no road crews. I mean, shut down. And having these instances where I don't know how long the power is going to be on. I don't know how long it's going to be off. And, I have kids, and, I can't get on the internet, even when the power is off. I can't get online because the cell phone towers are overloaded. So really, really being totally disconnected, and not in I'm going to take a 10-day silent meditation retreat.
Right.
I'm going to disconnect, and it's my intention to disconnect, and I'm prepared to disconnect. It's like, boom, you're done. You don't have the basic necessities. You barely have, you've got shelter, but barely. You've got, you don't have water, these things that are just like essential to our survival, are taken. And we're still dealing with the impact. For me personally, it wasn't awful, but I was without power, a couple of pipes froze and things like that. But those experiences really just, and the larger lesson with the pandemic, if you really want to go there, is this: I'm grateful for hugs, for connection, for human contact, for these gatherings that we used to have, and just really reframing our priorities for what we want to be grateful for. I think that's the benefit, the silver lining in any quote unquote crisis,
Hmm.
right? Is finding that gratitude. And I think, we're just, a lot of us are like children in that way. We just need to fall down to remember, like, okay, it's nice to stand up.
Yeah. It's like you wouldn't
Because,
wish it on anybody, and it shouldn't have to be that way, and it doesn't have to be that way. But if it does happen, again, I'm a strategy guy. The best thing you could do is you might as well see how can you cherry pick something from it to give a benefit to yourself.
yeah. And then moving forward, I love the teaching of Wayne Dyer too, is moving, like getting out ahead of the crisis and being open to learning apart from crisis. So
Mm.
getting to the point where, we don't have to have the rock bottom. It's like, we acknowledge, we know how it works. So with that said, what are you up to creating, and how are you reinventing yourself, and what things are next for you that you're getting out ahead of and you're creating, and how are you using your book to create the next thing?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like right now, you wouldn't know it when you look at it because it's been a couple of weeks since I published. Although I'm ready for it. Like a lot of focus now is on my YouTube channel because,
Okay.
like I am so I am beyond proud of the methods that I put in the book, and they're all that you need.
Mm-hmm.
But people love
Mm-hmm.
variety, so I keep coming up with new methods. So I'm not going to keep
Right.
changing my book. I'm just going to publish on YouTube for free. I'm going to keep coming out. It's like I have a lot of new
Mm-hmm.
methods on the
Mm-hmm.
way. I have a lot of new content. So for me, the message is the same. It never changes, and I like to keep it as simple as possible. But I do like to give as many reframes as possible as well, just because you never know if there's that one person that's going to stumble on that first video, and it's going to give them that click that they need. So, by the way, Case, this conversation, having conversations like these, this is also lighting me up. Like my year ahead is about having these kinds of conversations,
Mm-hmm.
publishing to YouTube, and then whatever else might come up. If I'm inspired to come up with another product, I will, but I'm not going to force it. I think we might have been talking about this before we hit the record button. Uh, I didn't articulate it this way. I can come up with like 100 products right now, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do it just for the sake of doing it to make money. I mean, maybe just call me a bad businessman. I only want to do it if it actually resonates and is in line with what I'm teaching already. Like, there's no reason to force something. The book
Right.
is enough. The YouTube channel is enough. Like one or two little things I'm doing is enough. So for me, I'm just excited about continuing to follow this thread, so to speak, and just keep putting
Mm.
out content around this message.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm in a bit of a same boat of like, okay, pushing out just, keep pushing out the content, dropping value. I'll have to connect with you on Clubhouse. I've recently gotten into Clubhouse, and I'm just like, oh man, there's a lot of value there
Yeah,
in the different communities. So where can people connect with you? I mean, I'll include the links and everything, but just for anyone who's listening, where can people connect with you, get your book, all that good stuff?
yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for asking. I've got two easy links for people. If you go to lastlawofattractionbook.com, that's going to auto
Mm-hmm.
forward to the Amazon listing. So whether you like it
Got it.
in Kindle or paperback or audiobook, like whatever your preferred format, it'll go right there. But if you don't want to pull your wallet out and you just want to see what more I've got going on, you can just go to youtube.com/Andrew Kap, 1K, 1P. And that's all my free content, new methods I'm putting out. So you get an option of whether you want to read or listen to the book or videos, whatever might work. And you can email me through the YouTube thing, but for the most part, I'd say first just enjoy the content. You don't even need to. I'm there to answer emails, but you don't need them right away. Like first, take in the
Right,
content,
right.
make sure it resonates. Try the methods out. You will not regret trying them out because they're free, right? And it's easy to do. It's only
Yeah.
5 minutes a day.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to try out some of the methods that you mentioned in your book and put a little spin on my gratitude practice, meditation practice, and all that stuff. And I think it's essential to really all of us who are out to create anything and get the results that we want to put ourselves in that space of gratitude and fun and consistency and all the things. So thank you so much for writing it and for doing the work of I'll say quote unquote promoting, but it's just sharing, right? Like sharing it and making sure more people know. And so I'm excited to be on this journey with you and see how your next channel grows and all the things grow and all the things. So thank you so much again. And I look forward to what's next.
Thank you for having me. Case, this was wonderful. I really appreciate you. And also quick thanks to your audience for listening to you, because it says a lot about people that are listening to this kind of content and this kind of show. Want to give credit where credit's due. So thank you for having me, and thank you to them.
Yes. Until next time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We'll just keep thanking. It'll just be a thank you rampage.
Yeah. Part two of the interview, just saying thank you for a half hour, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you, sir. I'll see you soon.